All right, so we are going to jump in here today. Today, we are going to be talking about all things market statistics. And for the purpose of this, we are going to be talking about the Toronto market statistics. Just so all of our BC friends are aware, we are going to be doing another one here for Vancouver coming up in a couple of weeks using the Vancouver stats. So you have access to that as well. I'm sure you can all agree market statistics are incredibly important in this industry. And I'm sure all of you are really familiar with all of the market statistics and all of the industry terms. But what's even more important is making sure that we communicate these statistics in a way that our clients understand. Right? You know, has it ever happened where you're at a party and you start getting asked about real estate and you start, talking about average days on market or months of inventory right now and those kind of terms, and people kind of look at you like you have two heads because those really are industry terms and people don't understand when you just start sharing what those statistics are. So what we wanted to do is make sure that we come in and give you a market update on what's going on with the Toronto Real Estate Board, but also help you understand how you can position yourself as an expert in this industry and make sure that you're communicating these stats in a way that really help your clients understand easily, right? So we're gonna get going here. If you do not have your video on and you're open to putting it on, we'd absolutely love to see your faces. It totally brings the energy up. I am going to introduce our speaker here today. We have RI CEO and founder, and one might also call him an expert in market updates. He's done a lot of these. So please welcome Richard Robbins.
Amy Sue, I'm going to just stay on for a minute. So Jay obviously is my daughter. I know she didn't mention that, but I know a lot of you know that. We have a very common last name. But it was sort of funny. I want to ask Jamie, how long have you been working for us now?
Probably about 25 years now.
25. But how old are you?
I'm 31.
So true story, everybody. Jamie and Tanner, but of course, Jamie's a couple years older than my son. She started like when she was 6 years old, and a lot of people would call it child labor, and probably somewhat true. But she started, we used to have a little assembly line in our house back when we used to do these promo events. And what we would do is we'd have the workbook printed. We had to stuff registration forms to our event. And, I can still remember in our L-shaped couch, we sitting around, the family doing one of those little assembly lines. So we had Jamie and Tanner very involved. But, it's funny, I had Kevin Cochran, who was actually one of our very first employees. He came in and we had lunch last week, which was great. And I got thinking, I said, actually, in all fairness, Jamie, you are our very first employee, but I don't know if I call you an employee because I don't think we paid you back then.
I was paid back then. We called it extracurricular activities, but I absolutely was paid. Not very much, but I've done every job.
Anyway, well, thank you so much, Jay. Great to have you here with us today. It's always great to have you. So welcome, everybody. So good to see all of you wonderful people. As we're moving through another interesting year in real estate, I think you would all agree. We're talking about this particular subject, and we're sort of committed. We want to do sort of more public events like this, where we can bring you content you can utilize in your business every single day. Now, I want to set this up. I am going to use Toronto stats today, but this isn't about Toronto. This is about how to present stats. So no matter what market, I don't care if you're watching us from Halifax, if you're watching us from Vancouver, Edmonton, go Oilers go, Calgary, Winnipeg, Regina, Ottawa. It doesn't matter where you are. All I can say is this. I can say that somebody just put Saskatoon is here, which is great. The information I'm going to give you today is about how to utilize stats in your market, okay? And I'm going to really recommend that you have somewhere to take notes, because there's going to be a lot of things I mentioned that I think you want to grab that tidbit of information that'll help you going forward. Now, I want to set this up as well. For some of you, not all of you, because many of you followed for a while, you've seen us do market updates before, and you might understand them better than some. And for some of you, you're going to look at this going, oh, really? You know what I mean? Like, how am I going to figure this out? I can tell you this, if you would just follow the process I'm about to give you, this becomes so easy, so easy. It's going to look a little complicated up front, But once you start it, and if you just update it on a monthly basis, only once a month do you have to update these charts, and I'm telling you, it becomes incredibly easy. And you can be standing at a party, as Jamie said, having a dinner conversation. Here's an example. I was at my golf course, had the opening field day. It was, I don't know, a couple of weeks ago. It was a Saturday, and that's when everybody gets together, and it's just fun. You know, we go and play a scramble best ball, and they put you with different people. And so I'm playing with this guy, and we got talking, and his name was Simon. And I don't know, we're in the third or fourth hole, and we're, you know, in the same cart. And he said to me, he said, I see you do a lot of real estate. I see you at LinkedIn. He was talking about seeing me on LinkedIn and Facebook and those sort of things. And he started telling me this guy owns a ton of real estate. I mean, a ton of real estate. Like he owns his own plane. Like he flies from Toronto to Montreal to go to Montreal Canadian games. Like, you know, very unassuming looking guy. But when he started, I'm going, wow, right? So we started, well, what do you think about this market? And, you know, I mean, and you get asked that question all the time, as do I. And he said, like, you know, what's going on in this market? Like, you know, sales are down, the market's crashing, all these sort of things. I said, the market's not crashing at all. I said, and here's why. I said, people naturally assume, and I'll go through this, some of the slides with you to help you understand this. I said, people naturally assume when sales are down, the marketing is plummeting in price. But I said to him, I said, one thing we have to understand is just because sales are down doesn't always mean prices are going down. Now, it could mean prices are going down. So if I go back to the early 90s, or even 2008 for that matter, in the early 90s, I was still selling real estate. It was really interesting because back then what happened, as interest rates went up, you know, back then, just like they've done recently, our inventory went way up. So what happened is, you know, rates go up, sales went down, sales numbers went down as they have here. But then what happened? Inventory went through the roof. So all of a sudden we were operating with like, you know, 4, 5, 6 months of inventory, 7, 8, 9 months of inventory. We get into double-digit months of inventory back in the early 90s. Well, when you get into double-digit months of inventory, and I'll explain this term more in just a moment, is your prices are going down. But see, here what happened in Canada throughout almost all of the provinces, okay? Alberta's sort of killing it right now. There's no question. They still have very low months of inventory, the lowest, by the way, in all of the other provinces. But what you have to realize is what happened this time is our sales went down. There's no question. I'll show you some of these numbers, but our inventory didn't go up as much. Now, our inventory is still going up and went up a little bit last month, and I'll show you that. But the whole thing is the inventory didn't go up to a point that it really became a strong buyer's market. Now, we've got all kinds of different property types, and I'm going to share that with you as well, the difference between sort of a micro market and a macro market. So here's what I want to do. My goal today is to give you the information, okay, and then how you can share it, okay, because when I was on this golf cart and I started saying, because he thought prices were just, you know, going down, and I said, no, I said, because everything is based on supply and demand. It doesn't matter whether it's real estate or boats or cars or clothes or whatever, right? And I said, so when you start to look at it, you know, if you have, say, 0 to 4 months of inventory, you know, that's sort of roughly seller market territory. As we get closer to 4 months of inventory, we're starting to move into more of a balanced market. You know, Toronto operated with 0.7 months of inventory. I believe Calgary right now is below 1 month of inventory. That is a strong, strong, strong seller's market. And that's where Toronto was way back when in the heyday, and that's sort of where Calgary is now. Then, of course, as we start to move up and we get into 4 months of inventory, we're moving into balanced territory. And then we get to 5.5 to 6, we're moving into buyer territory. You know, because think about this, if 4 months of inventory, and here's how the numbers would work, if you had 1,000 listings in your market, and if you had 4 months of inventory, that means 2,500, okay, or I should say 250 of those 1,000 are going to sell. See, 4 months of inventory, it means 25% of the properties that go to market are going to sell, and that's balanced territory. If we have 2 months of inventory, that means if we had 1,000 active listings at the end of the month, right? That means that what we end up with is, you know, it's every 50% of the listings are actually selling, okay, on a regular basis. So what we have to realize is that, you know, the months of inventory, supply and demand, is going to determine which way prices are going to go, because first rule of economics. But we need to know these numbers, okay, upside down and backwards. Like this stuff, you should be able to have a dinner conversation, a golf cart conversation, a party conversation with anybody and just rhyme off 4 numbers, and I'm going to give you the 4 numbers that you need to know, and what those numbers mean based on history. So what do those numbers mean based on last month? What do those numbers mean based on the same month last year? Because then you turn that information into an insight, and that's what people are looking for. They can look at the newspapers to get information, but what do the numbers actually mean? So I want to take you through that today. So first of all, the reason I think this is important, or believe this is important for you as a real estate sales professional, is because we are in an industry today that we have a lot of real estate agents. I think you would all agree. You know, we look across Canada, I think, what is there? 140,000 agents, I think. You know, overall, if we go right across Canada, I think just the Toronto Real Estate Board alone, I think it's 70 to 80,000 agents. Like, you know, these are really big numbers. And the challenge is we've become commoditized to a degree. And what I mean by that is, I mean, when the public looks at us, do they say, that person is different and that's a person I want to hire? Why? Because they're an authority, okay? Like they are an accepted source of information. I will take their advice. You know, they've earned the right to be respected, okay? And we will accept their word. They're commanding of influence. That's what authority is. Now, a lot of people, you know, they might do a lot of marketing in different ways, and maybe they're not viewed as an authority. Maybe they're viewed as, you know, maybe as a celebrity, right? Because they're spending all this money. I want everybody to know who I am, but I'm telling you, the most powerful influencer in the world is when you are considered an authority. So the question is, how do you become an authority? And that's what this whole thing is about. Because when you become an authority, you know, you stand out in everybody else's mind, and people start to look to you for advice. They look to you as being their advisor. They look to you as being their guide. And it is a powerful, powerful place to get, you know, as a real estate sales professional, financial planner, insurance, doctor. We can go on and on and on. So how do we do it? 2 ways. Number 1 is this. One way to position yourself as an authority is comment on any breaking news regarding the real estate market, and don't be afraid to have an opinion. Authorities have opinions. Now, here's the challenge. A lot of people don't want to have an opinion because, oh, I might be wrong. Yes, you might be wrong. And I'll tell you, I've been wrong many times. But still, people want to know what your opinion is. If you're an authority, if you're an expert in understanding the real estate market, okay, then you need to have an opinion. You need to talk to people about, you know, this is happening, and here's where I think this could go. Now, it doesn't mean your opinion's always going to be right. That's cool. But you're going to give the best possible opinion you can give based on your expertise, your education. And guess what? That's going to be better than most if you study the real estate markets. So I'm going to show you a couple ways of doing that, okay? And I'm going to show you 2 videos. Now, this first video I'm going to show you, this is Nurse. He's one of our great coaching clients. And if you remember, the government in their budget changed the capital gains. You probably all know about that. Well, I'm telling you, within about 24 hours of when that happened, Nurse posted this video. So watch this video.
So let's talk a little bit about capital gains. So in the federal 2024 budget, capital gains inclusion rate has gone up to 66% from 50% over 250,000. So for your first 250,000 in capital gains will still be at the 50% inclusion rate. Anything over and above that will be at 66% taxable at your marginal tax rate. Now, what does that mean for you? If you have an investment property that has gains over $250,000 that you've owned for, you know, at least a year or more, you are going to be taxed when you sell it, unless you dispose of that a unit or a property before June 25th, 2024. So you have to dispose of the property before that time for you to realize only the 50% capital gain exemption. If you have further questions, you know, you should talk to your accountant because they can give you more information on it. But this affects any investment, whether it's stocks, crypto, mutual funds, RSPs. It affects any investment. This also affects personal corporations. So a lot of small businesses have a lot of investments within these corporations that they were using the capital gains exemption from. So it is affecting a lot of professionals, self-employed people who don't have pensions, don't have RSPs. They were using their corporations as basically a retirement plan. It does affect them. We haven't seen this kind of inclusion rate the year 2000. So again, consult a professional. If you want some more information or referral, give us a call and we'll direct you in the right place. Thanks and have a great day.
Beautiful. Now, that to me was, very well done, because what he did, he took something that got a lot of people's attention. It was in all of the newspapers, right? Everybody was talking about it. And very shortly after it came out, he sent out this video, or he put it up on social media, I should say, about exactly what was happening in the marketplace. That's the value of using real-time information and getting it out there. Now, this was done in a video. That doesn't mean that you couldn't post a written text on social media. You could send it out to your database. There's so many other things that you could do with this, but that's just one. And if you want to see how Nurse does this, follow him on Instagram, because he does a lot of these videos on a regular basis, and a great way for you to get to see what it is that he actually does. Okay. Now, I understand that, you look at some of the dates he mentioned, they might not be perfect, because I know a couple of them have changed, but anyway, that was just done right after it came out. So here's another one. Think about this. This was CMHC, and I found this. It says Canada's experiencing the most acute housing shortage of any country in the G7. Now, you can't tell me they're not talking points. You can't tell me that's not something you could do a video on. That's not something you could post on social media. That's not something you could send out to your database to let them know what's going on. And look what it says. Canada would need to build 4 million additional housing units to bring affordability to where it was in 2024. Ladies and gentlemen, we have over 1 million new immigrants coming to this country every year. Now, the challenge with that, there's a lot of good things about that, but the challenge with that is that all of these people need a place to live, right? So what's happening with rents? What's happening with trying to buy a home? And that's one of the reasons we haven't seen prices go down, generally speaking. They have some markets, but they haven't gone down. Why? Because we have a shortage of houses. So people are still out there buying homes, even when rates are up, which means our inventory is staying down. A lot of people aren't putting their homes on the market, because if they put their homes on the market, they might have to move and get a new mortgage at the new mortgage rates. I know it went down a quarter of a point yesterday, which is all good. And I think that's going to spike the market a little bit. I think that's going to encourage some buyers to get out there. But listen, we need more of that. But all I'm saying is this, that's why prices haven't gone down. So anybody that thinks the prices in Canada are going to drop rapidly, can't. There's too much demand, way too much demand, and not near enough supply. That there is something that you could talk about, and I just gave you my opinion. That's the type of things you need to be doing. Imagine sitting with a buyer. Say you've got, 6 or 7 or 8 buyer leads, or maybe 20 buyers you're working with, or people that are looking, and then you send them like this and you say, you want to know something? If you're waiting for prices to go down, I think you might be making a mistake. Why? Too much demand. It's crazy. These are the opinions you got to have. What about this one here? Statistics Canada live population tracker showed Canada's population topped 41 million people in late March. That is less than a year after hitting the 40 million milestone. Now think about 1 million people in a country with 40 million people. Do you realize 1 million people is a large percentage of 40 million people? This is stuff we all need to be talking about, everybody. This is what the public wants to hear from you. Here's another one right here. So in other words, why aren't prices going to dive in Canada? Because our housing starts are down. So here we got this tremendous demand, right? We've got all of this new immigration coming into our country, and our housing starts are down. Why? Because there's a lot of larger projects that are going to pull off the market because they don't make sense because of interest rates anymore. So there you go. 2022, we had what? 250 starts and 240. I think it's 261. 261, then went to 240, and they're estimating 232 this year. So when you start to look at some of these numbers, you've got to realize that because of these numbers, that you can make some pretty good assumptions as to what's going to happen with the marketplace. So the first thing we got to do, take anything you read about real estate, okay? Just scan all the national newspapers every day and just look for a real estate article, okay? All kinds of it on social media. all kinds of it on all the news feeds that you probably look at on a regular basis. And when you see something, get that message out to the public. So that's one way of becoming an authority. Let me show you another video. This is somebody else I think you should follow on Instagram because he does a great job of being an authority in real estate, and it's Tom Story. So have a look at this video right here and watch what he says. And this is before the rates went down yesterday.
The Bank of Canada is about to shock the Canadian housing market. Regardless of what they do on June 5th, July 24th, or September 4th, a lot of people are going to see news headlines that Bank of Canada has decreased rates, likely by 25 points. And you and me know that this has no real change on the market at all. But what we need to remember is that a large portion of Canadians are not really following this along that closely. And that a lot of people don't actually understand that what Bank of Canada does has nothing to do with the fixed rate, which right now is way below the variable rate anyways. So if they do cut rates in 2024, it's more going to be a signal to buyers that, hey, it's not going to get worse from here. And maybe that's all some people need to hear.
That was a brilliant video. Remember that? Because he talked about, at some point this year, they're going to go down. That was before yesterday, obviously, and they did go down yesterday. And he's saying, it's not going to have a great effect on the actual mortgage rates. Might have a little effect, but what it might do is cause buyers to get off the fence. There is an opinion. So he just took a news piece, okay, and he turned it into a little video, which again, you can publish any way you want. And Tom does, I'll tell you, Nurse and Tom do a brilliant job of it. So what I would suggest, if you're not following them and you want more good content, follow them. Because in all fairness, I know that you could probably take even what they say and you could use that same type of content because it's just news. It's all news. So that's number one. Okay, number two, the second way is to provide real-time market updates and insights. I call this market intelligence. Okay, so the first one is what you're going to do is you're going to watch for any major changes you can talk about. Interest rates, obviously, immigration, we can go on about inflation. There's so many things that affect the housing market that you could talk about. The second thing, how do we provide real-time market updates? So there's 4 things, okay, that you should know about your market every single month, and then you update this every month. So just write these down, and I'm going to show you how to use them. So number one, average your benchmark price. You choose which one you want to use. Some people like average, some people like benchmark, some boards use benchmark, some boards use average. Doesn't matter what it is, but whatever, use the same number all of the time, okay? The number of sales that take place in your market. So the number of sales that take place in your market every single month. Number 3, the number of active listings, not new listings. Okay, now that doesn't mean you can't track new listings, not a bad thing to track, but I'm more interested in active listings. And here's why I am, because this is the way I look at it. If I want to calculate months of inventory, it's a very easy number to calculate. All I do is this, I take the active listings at the end of the month, right? So how many active listings? Because that's your competition, that's your supply. The new listings are added to the listings that were already there. So there's nothing wrong with tracking new listings, but there is more inventory than just the new listings that came on that month. So it won't give me a true indicator, okay, of all of my supply. So that's why I do active listings. So I take active listings at the end of the month, and then how many sales happen that month, and I divide the sales into the active listings, and that will give me months of inventory. So like I said before, you got 1,000 active listings, 250 sales, divide 250 into 1,000, gives you 4 months of inventory. You all with me? You got 1,000 listings, you got 500 sales, divide 500 into 1,000, you got 2 months of inventory, which is a strong seller's market. Listen, you got 1,000 active listings and you have 100 sales, divide 100 into 1,000, you have 10 months of inventory, which means you have a strong buyer's market and prices are going down, okay? So that's what you want to do. And then again, to give you an idea, and this is something you can talk about with consumers. When I started to talk about this with the guy in the golf cart, and this is a guy that he's got a lot of real estate, man. And when I told him this, he's looking at me, he goes, that's brilliant. So all I have to do is look at the numbers. I said, yes, you just look at the numbers, but then you got to take the macro market and make it a micro market. And I'm going to talk about that in just a moment. But this will very quickly show you what is happening in a marketplace, okay? This will show you, if you track this every single month, what is the trend? So let's say this, let's say you track it right now, as an example, there's 4 months of inventory. Let's say that was the number. And let's say, next month you go to 3.8 months of inventory, and then the next month you go to 3.6 months of inventory. What is the trend line? The trend line is it's going down, right? So all of a sudden, chances are your market is starting to get stronger in terms of price. Because remember, there's two things to always consider in a market. The number of sales, because if you're in the real estate business, the number of sales is something you're concerned with, because it's how big or small our pie is. How many opportunities are available to you, right? So, if you're doing 2,000 sales and all of a sudden it drops down to 1,500, there's less opportunities available to you, which will probably make it a little bit more difficult. But then the second number you got to track is price, because just because sales down doesn't mean prices are going to be down. And I'll show you how to do that. But your price is always going to be determined by the amount of inventory, because that is your supply and that is your demand. Okay, so I hope everybody gets that. And I know my team is here. I'm not looking at the chat, but I know my team is here to answer questions in the chat. And maybe at the end, if there's anything they want me to answer, I can do that as well. Okay, so let's talk micro markets, macro markets. I'm going to show you two different types of micro markets. For this to be accurate, when you're having a conversation with a consumer, they have to believe you're talking about their market. So I'm going to show you. This is another great coaching client. His name is John Jennings. He's out in Vancouver. He works West Van and he works North Van. Now, had this market update come out, he sends this by email. He doesn't do video. He just sends it by email. He sent this out yesterday. I'm on his email list. I get it every single month, right? Just because I'm interested, and he likes me to see what he's doing and that sort of thing. So here's two markets. So West Vancouver, he's got his main numbers. So you can see there it said sales were 34. Okay? Year to date was 170. You can see the average price is what, 3.6 million. Yes, this is West Vancouver, the most expensive real estate in all of Canada, everybody, just so you know. Okay? You can also see the active listings were 504. Now, if you have 504 active listings, right, and 34 sales, you have more than 10 months of inventory, don't you? Interesting. More than 10 months of inventory. So let's go to look what happened in 2023. He had 41 sales and 383. You see that number? Now, let's go down and look at North Van. Now, you got to remember, when you go to North and West Vancouver, they're right beside each other. I mean, literally, like, you're driving along West Vancouver, poof, I'm in North Vancouver, turn around, whoop, back in West Vancouver. They're right there. And look at the difference in these markets. See, these are what I call micro markets. Because if you said to somebody in North Vancouver, oh, we have over 10 months of inventory, they're going to look at you like, you're crazy. What do you mean 10 months? There's no listings for sale. Because look what happened here. They had 98 sales and 284 active listings. So we're talking two totally different markets that are side by side. So here's an example, and this is John's update. He said in West Vancouver, there were 14.8 months of inventory. Do you see what he said there? Then go down to the next part. In North Vancouver, there were 2.9 months of inventory. Now, the reason I show you this, because if John didn't break down these two markets, he would not have the right information about the market that he was in. He might be giving people wrong advice. And also, they're not going to look at him as an authority, because they might think, you don't know what the hell you're talking about, buddy, because you don't understand my market. You don't understand my neighborhood. So it's very important when you're going to sit and have a conversation with a buyer or a seller about this sort of thing, what you need to do is make sure that you're saying, okay, this is what's happening in Lee's side as an example. Okay? Not what's happening in the GTA, because people go, well, the GTA, what are you talking about? That's Barrie, that's like Hamilton, like it goes all over the place. What's that got to do with Forest Hill, Leaside, or Markham, or Unionville, or whatever that particular area is? So that's one micro market is going to be a geographical area. Okay, so just write that down. One micro market is going to be a geographical area. Okay, the second micro market would be something like this. And what this is where you compare different property types. Now, this was for May. We put these together last night, actually with the help of Tom's story. So thanks for his help on this. But anyway, in the 416, if you take the Greater Toronto, there's 416 and there's 905. I think you all know that, right? So 416 is sort of Toronto proper. 905 is sort of the greater areas just outside of Toronto proper. So if we look at detached and condo apartments, so they're two different property types. So remember, one micro market, geographical area. Second micro market is going to be property types. So if we look at active listings, you can see detached, and this is in the 416, 2,032. Sales were 851, which means months of inventory In detached properties, 2.4. 2.4, what is that? A buyer's market, seller's market. That is a buyer's market, or seller's market, I should say. So in other words, it is hard to find a detached home that is properly priced that does not get multiple offers in Toronto right now. But let's go to condo apartments. This is a whole different story. Condo apartments, you got 4,798 active listings at the end of the month, 1,207 sales. That's 4.8 months of inventory. Now, you could actually look at some buildings, because there's some buildings that have way more inventory, and they might have 7 months of inventory. You see where I'm going with this? So you could take your micro market as property type, and it could be condos in a certain geographical area, or you could figure out what it is right in one building, because some buildings are going to perform more than others. So do you see where I'm going with all this? When you start to have these conversations, imagine you're going in to price a condo, and you actually do a study on their building, and you find out for the last 12 months, okay, every single month, and I'll show you how to graph it in just a moment, and you've got, you know, how many active listings, how many sales, and you look at their market, and you look at the months of inventory over a period of time on a line graph, and all of a sudden you can see which way it's trending, right? So imagine this, all of a sudden you look at one condo building, because we have a lot of inventory in condos right now in Toronto, and more so in 416 and 905. So you look at months of inventory, and what you see is you can see the trend line is going like this. That means, when should I sell? Now or in 2 months? Now, because guess which way the prices are probably going to go? They're probably going to go down. Simple. When you start to look at all this sort of stuff, these are the conversations you need to be having with people. So then the next point after micro markets, as I want you to write down, is the difference between information and insights. Information and insights. What is information? Information is, last month there was 6,500 homes sold, or whatever the number is, right? I'm just picking them. That's information. Now, that's good, I guess, but what does it mean? Most people have no idea what the hell that means, right? Yeah, so is that good? Is that bad? That's 6,500 sales. I don't know. See, it becomes an insight when you start comparing it to something else. And then again, you tell them what that number means. So if you look at the newspapers, I've been watching the newspapers of recent, you know, especially yesterday when the numbers came out, and what they're talking about is the sales in Toronto were down about 20% from the same month last year, which is absolutely true. That's an insight, you see? But also what was interesting is that, you know, that's the month of May, and sales were almost the same as April, the month before. That's another insight, isn't it? You see where I'm going with that? Year over year, down 20%. Month over month, we're almost even. And here's how you would create insights. You must create visuals, because you never tell them what you have the opportunity to show them. Because I'm telling you, when people can see something, they relate to it more. Now, this is Canada right here. So let's just look at these numbers. These are the amount of sales that took place in Canada from 2014 to the end of last year, and then there's a couple predictions. Now, if we go to 2021, we know it was a crazy, busy year. It was insane. By the way, the most sales that have ever taken place, okay, have ever taken place in the history of Canada. So let's go back and look at these numbers. So if we look at these, you can see right here, we did 666,000 sales. Now, when this was happening in Canada, we were operating with very low months of inventory. Prices in most markets were going through the roof. I mean, absolutely going through the roof, right? Why? Because we had unbelievable demand, and because our demand was so strong, our supply couldn't keep up. But if we go back and say, okay, what is sort of the average? If we looked at all these numbers, what do you think an average year would be for Canada? Well, here's what I'm going to say. I'm going to think an average year is around 500,000 sales, okay? Because look, if it goes up and down, you had 482, 507, 539, 515, 461, 490, 551. This was COVID year. And imagine that. We did 551 sales in the COVID year, when we had 90 days where we did hardly any sales. That's still pretty incredible, right? Then we did 498. Now, so everybody's going last year, they go, oh my God, the market, you know, is just way, way off. Or in 2022, it's just crazy. Well, here was the problem. It was like you're driving down the highway at 120 kilometers an hour, and all of a sudden you hit a town and you got to drop your speed to 50 kilometers an hour. You felt like you were going slow, but guess what? It was still not a bad year. It was probably very close to an average year. Now, we were off last year, 2023, for sure. You can see we got off here. And these are sort of the projections that Korea has said we're going to hit this year. I don't know what they're going to be for sure. But the thought is this, is when you create a visual like this, and you show this to a consumer, or you post this on social media sites, or whatever the case is, you're starting to become known as what? An authority. Because they can look at this and go, wow, that's really interesting. You can be doing a listing presentation, sitting do a needs analysis with a buyer and take them through these numbers and let them know what is going on. And once you create this, the first time you create this, yeah, it's going to be a little bit of work. But after that, once a year, you just got to put on another bar in there. It's all done. How long does that take? And I'm sure there's people you know could do this. So let me give you some update in Toronto. But when I'm giving you this update in Toronto, what I'm also going to do is I'm going to show you the visuals that I think all of you should consider creating so that you can use these visuals when you're talking to buyers and when you're talking to sellers. And for that matter, you could be at a party and you're going to be able to talk about the numbers because you've created the visuals. So here's the first one. Let's have a look at this. So what this is this is the TREB, okay, average price, May 23 to 24. So if we go back, we can see if we go back to May right here, we're sitting at 1.19. Right now, we're at 1.16. Well, if you really think about it, 1.19 and 1.16, they're awful damn close, aren't they? Well, what's happened to prices over the last little while? Have they gone down or have they gone up? They've gone up. Why? Because we're operating with less than 4 months of inventory in some markets, right? So you look at this, you go, well, this all makes sense to me. Now, excuse me, if you showed this to most consumers, especially buyers, would this cause them to maybe think they better get into the market, especially now we've had a 25 basis points drop by the Bank of Canada? Because which way generally are prices going? Now, maybe they're buying condos and maybe the price going the other way. But when you create this right here, you always have a visual. And once you create this, think about this. Once you've created it once, all you got to do every month is add the next month. It becomes very, very simple. Let's have a look at this one right here. So this is a monthly sales trend for TREB, and you can do this for any market. You can do this for any micro market, whatever you want to do, depending where you work. So you can see back here, May, 9,000 sales. You can see what happened this May, 7,000. Yes, we were down in excess of 20% in terms of sales. But you look at April, we did 7,100 in April and basically 7,000. That's roughly 100 difference. That's pretty damn close, right? And if we compare that to March, we compare to February. So you start to look at this, you go, well, is it really, that bad? And by the way, what is our trend line, everybody? Which way is our line trending right now? Okay, so these are all things you want to give some consideration to. And when you show these to the public, all of a sudden they're going, wow, this is really cool. This tells me a lot. This is helpful. Now, here's another one. And what I did here was I put the sales on it. Okay, so as you saw on the last one right here, your sales, I put it down here. But then what I added to it was the active listings. Because what this will show you is, what is your months of inventory? It's the gap, isn't it? Do you see? So if you think about it, the larger the gap, the more months of inventory you have. The smaller the gap, the less months of inventory you have. So this is something you could create, or maybe you don't want to complicate it. Maybe you just want to put active listings in this one. But you can see May, Toronto up to 21,000 active listings. And look at, we had 7,000 sales. So obviously sitting around 3 months of inventory right there. That's what the number is, because you divide this number into that number, that gives you the number, right? Same here. You think about it, our months of inventory never really changed from March because we had 18,000 listings, say 6,500 sales, which is, just less than 3 months of inventory. You see how we work that out? Here, if you look at, we didn't have hardly inventory at all because we had about less than 2.5 months of inventory right here. But if we go over here, you can see we had quite a bit. So again, these are visuals that you can create them. Once you create it once, every month, you just got to add next month on, last month pops out, and away we go. This one here is your months of inventory. So this is what we're dealing with. And this is your supply and demand. And this is something you all should know. This is for the Toronto Real Estate Board, the GTA, but you could break it down to any micro market. You can see, look at this. You know, we get up in here, started getting into balanced territory, right? And a little stronger down in here. So really quite amazing if you think about it. And the reason I say that is this, because if you look at almost every time in history, almost every single time in history that interest rates went up, sales went down, prices went down. But it's not happening this time. I'm not saying there's not certain property types that are weakening, please. Sorry, I need a little vodka here, everybody's saying. Hot stuff. You know what they say? They say if you don't start drinking first thing in the morning, you can't drink all day. So let's get at her. Anyway, but it's the first time that I have seen in my 40 years in this business where interest rates went up, sales numbers actually went down, because almost always before, active listings went way up and our prices plummeted. But I'm not saying that we haven't had price adjustments. I don't want you to take me the wrong way, but I'm saying we haven't seen prices go down like 20 points, right? We haven't seen that, which is quite amazing. Why? Because we're bringing over 1 million people to this country every year. Our new starts are down, and we have a supply issue, and the worst supply issue of any of the G7 nations. And if buyers are sitting on the fence thinking, is it a good time to buy? My God, guess when you should buy? Now, right now. Because I believe now these rates have started to change, and I believe they'll continue in that downward motion. Then what's going to happen is, because we have not enough supply based on the demand, what do you think is going to happen to prices? Because remember, two numbers, number of sales and prices, and one does not always correlate with the other. So here's a couple other numbers that I'll show you. So we got here, this is how many does May, so if we look at May 2019 all the way through, 7,000, 9,000 last May, 7,000 2022. You can see what happened in 2021. You know, it's COVID year. But anyway, it's just real cool stuff that you can show people. Here's another one here. Treb 7-year average of price, 2017 average price was 805. You can see dropped a little bit there, and after that just started to go up. So, you know, we're sitting in here almost the same, right? 2021 went up in 2022. So you look at some of these numbers and you think to yourself, well, market's pretty good, everybody. I know there's not, the volume of sales is not there, but I'm telling you, from a buyer standpoint, not a bad time to be buying. And what do I think is going to happen? I'll tell you what I think is going to happen. I think what's going to happen is our market from this point forward, after we had that basis point drop, 25 basis point drop, I think buyers are going to start to get back in the market a little bit, right? You know, I know a lot of people right now are still taking the fixed rates, right, instead of the variable rates, because it's a lot less expensive. But I look at it and say, I think we're going to see some momentum come into this market. And I do think what you're going to start to see is you're going to start to see the volume of sales start to rise. Not dramatically. I don't think dramatically this year. I think we're going to have a little better second half than we did the first half. But I got a feeling 2025 is going to be a good year in real estate. I think our sales volume is going to start to go back up again. And you want to know something? Yeah, we got to work a little harder right now. But guess what? Nothing wrong with that. That makes us better. Right? I look at, we've got, you know, I can talk, my son-in-law having the best year ever he had, Rocca Sisters best year they ever had. Like, there's so many people that are having unbelievable years. But guess what? They got their nose to the grindstone. They're in the game. They're working their asses off. Back in 2021, like, leads were falling from the sky. My God, I wake up every day and I've got all these new leads. We didn't have to work for them as much. Listen, we got to work harder right now. Yes. We got to be a little more skilled right now. Do we got to be really good at pricing properties? Yes, absolutely. But guess what? That's when the cream rises to the what? Rises to the top. So anyway, there's my predictions. That's what I think is going to happen. And here's what I want to do. I want to take just a few minutes and I want to talk to you about our coaching program. So hang with me, because I'm going to present you with an opportunity that I think you might want to consider. So first of all, as many of you know, and not all of you, we are celebrating our 25th anniversary in business. Yeah. And as my daughter said, she's now been with us 25 years, which is really cool. And what have we done for 25 years? Well, we've done events and coaching. And I will say to you, we wouldn't be here for 25 years doing what we're doing if we didn't do them pretty well, because our customers have told us that, right? And by the way, if you're in our coaching program and you're watching this, maybe you want to throw some comments into the chat and let people know what you think about our coaching program. So I want to start with this, and I just got a couple slides. I don't have very much. But I look at it and say, the first thing I want to talk about is what is the investment? And the investment of our coaching program is $899 a month. Now, why do I want to tell you that up front? I want to tell you that up front because as I move through this, I want you to see how invaluable it is and would be to you. So first of all, if you book a call with Jamie or any coaching advisor, and we're going to show you how to do that in the chat in the next 24 hours, then we're going to waive the one assessment fee, $799. And the other thing, a lot of people say, well, what's the guarantee? Yeah, what's the guarantee? I guarantee we're going to work really hard, but my concern is how much you're going to work. But anyway, I want you to think about this. We don't have contracts. A lot of companies in our business, sign you up to a 12-month contract, all that sort of thing. We're not in contracts. Now, I don't want you to get in and think, I'm going to get in for a month and give it a try, and then I'm going to get out. That is the worst mindset you could ever start a coaching program, right? Like, we've got people with us 20 years, 15 years, 12 years, absolutely amazing. I believe it's a lifetime program because we can continue to learn and grow together. But with 30 days notice, you can always leave the program. And we couldn't make it any easier than that. We're not going to try to hold you to any contract. But here's what I want you to think about. Can you imagine if you started to do this for, let's say, the investment of $899 a month, which, by the way, at the end of the year would be what, a half a deal to most of you? A half a deal. You can't tell me that you're not worth a half a deal to get better, improve your quality of life, make more money. Are you kidding me? Like, you got to be worth that. But imagine this. Imagine that if what you did is every 2 weeks, okay, you're involved with us, and you have a one-on-one call with your coach, and that coach has nothing but your agenda in mind. All they're trying to do is help understand what happened over the last couple of weeks. How did you make out? Scale of 1 to 10, what went right, what went wrong? And then talk a little bit, what would we like to get done in the next couple of weeks? Have a chat with you about it, and you sort of brainstorm it together, and come up with a bit of a plan as to what you're going to work on. And just because in 2 weeks later you're going to get back on that call, you can't tell me you're going to do more than you would have done without it. I know you will. Can you imagine this? Can you imagine that every couple of weeks, because you're already getting your one-on-one calls, but what you do is you jump in what we call an impact call, and I do most of these impact calls. We interview, we have great presenters, the whole thing, and you imagine, so in other words, in a couple of weeks, we got one coming up in pricing, next week. Next Wednesday, one come up, we got Mark, and he's going to be there and talk about how in this marketplace he's pricing properties. And then if he doesn't get the right price right off the bat, what he does in the first week, okay, through data that he communicates with them so they can see clearly maybe they're at the wrong price. So let's say you jumped on that call. We have 2 of those every single month. We've got one coming up. We're going to do a door knocking masterclass. We had Tom's Story do his listing presentation live from start to finish. And then he made available in our portal his whole listing presentation. How about how to do rock star open houses, right? Next week or 2 weeks after the pricing video, I've got a number of our top clients that are going to show their 2024 marketing program, detailed line, what they do. Okay, and these are bigger businesses. Like, this is the type of stuff you get access to. So you got your one-on-one, and then you jump on a call every other week as well, and you get impact. I call it impact call because we want to talk about something that'll impact your business now. We're going to talk about something that you can change right now and make a difference and make more money and give you better quality of life. Can you imagine that? And then you also get 2 VIP tickets to our big event that happens in Toronto in November. That's $1,300 you want to buy it times 2. That's $2,600 in tickets, and you're VIP. You're sitting with all of the other coaching members. Imagine you go into our portal. We got listing presentation templates. We got stuff about market updates. We've got systems, how to hire an assistant, how to onboard an assistant, how to do a rockstar open house. I mean, there's so much content in there that you could learn anything you want to learn about the business and the best way to do it. All sitting there right at your fingertips. All you got to go on. And then We have this closed Facebook group. All of a sudden, you got a question about something. So I saw one in there the other day, but somebody wants to get rid of their CRM and get a new CRM. What CRM is everybody working? And all of a sudden, everybody's putting in there, I went to this CRM, it's the best. I went to this CRM. Somebody said, I want to get rid of, this particular video platform I'm using. I want to go to another one. What would you recommend, right? It's unbelievable what goes on in there. The communication between all of our members. That's what our program is about. Ladies and gentlemen, it is so much more than a coaching program. So much more than a coaching program. And you can't tell me that if you got involved and you committed to it, not just, I'm going to get in the program, we'll see how it goes. None of this, right? I mean, like, you commit to us, we're going to commit to you, we're going to do great things together. But you get involved in the program and you get on your calls with your coach every couple of weeks. You get on our impact calls on a regular basis. You show up at the events, right? You hang out with the coaching members, associate with people, like-minded people that are doing great things in the world, right? As Les Brown said, only quality people in your life. That $8.99 month investment might be the best investment you could ever make, because how much would that be worth to you? And I've always said, the greatest cost in the world is the cost of inaction, not action. It's the cost of inaction. You just think in your life, how many times have you not taken the action you knew you should have taken? How much did that cost you? So we're going to waive the assessment fee, and all you have to do, and I'm sure it's in the chat there somewhere, all you have to do is book a call with our coaching advisors, right? Within 24 hours, and we'll waive the $7.99 if and when you join the coaching program. And remember, no contract. 30 days, you're out. That's all we ask. 30 days notice, and you're out. We can't do any better than that. And I can say this, in 25 years, we've had the good fortune of changing. Like, we've had over 300,000 people that have attended our multi-day events. Think of that. We've helped people, tens of thousands of people in our coaching program. And I can promise you, being around 25 years is pretty cool, because it means we got to be doing something right. So anyway, go ahead and book a call. Book a call with a coaching advisor. Find out more about what we do. Get involved. And I promise you, it will make a difference. So what I want to do now quickly, I just want to see, Jamie, are you available to come back on? And is there anything that's in the chat that you want me to answer?
Okay, so if you have any last minute questions, put it in the chat now. There's only one more thing, because we had a lot of questions, and I know there's always a lot of confusion around this, but can you go over the months of inventory calculation again and just kind of explain it one more time? And then we might have a couple more questions after that.
Okay, so really simply, I want you to take the active listings, not new listings, the active listings on the market at the end of the month, okay? And then take the amount of sales that happen in that month and divide that into the active listings. And the active listings, in most cases in this market, wasn't always the case in 2021, the active listings are going to be higher than the sales, right? So divide the smaller number into the bigger number, the active listings, and that will get, and once you get it, I know that's why I said when I started up front, some people find this confusing and complicated, but once you get it, you'll realize it's unbelievably simple. All of a sudden one day you go, I get it, right? And then once you create it once, you're ready to rock and roll.
Okay, perfect. I don't think we have any other questions. All the other questions Dana and I were able to answer. So yeah, I think we're all done here.
Okay, well, listen, I want to thank everybody for jumping on with us today. Always great to be with all of you. I hope this was, valuable to you. I hope you start to use some of this and become an authority, right? Because then people will start to look to you for advice. They're going to start to look to you for guidance. And I'll tell you, it's one of the greatest marketing initiatives in the world is when you work your way into becoming an authority in your business. So thanks, everybody. Go ahead and book a call with one of our coaching advisors, and hopefully I'm going to see you at another event real soon. And remember, everybody, it's a beautiful life. Make it count.